Hello, Smite Draft League. Welcome to Week 6 here in Immortal Division. Wild Inferno taking on the Sunbreakers. I'm Deelo and joined here by the very dashing, eyebrow-raising young man next to me. That's Gearchief. Gearman, how we feeling?
I'm pretty good, you know. I feel, I feel like I've made a full villain arc right now. I started the season with an animated co-host, and now I am the animated co-host. Don't die the hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
That's what I was thinking. It's facts. It's facts.
How you doing tonight, Deelo? Oh, and I'd like to congratulate you for all those who haven't heard. Deelo has won a casting tournament, and you'll soon be casting with some SBL casters as well. So congratulations, Deelo. Throw a little out of the casting booth thing at you.
Very much appreciate that, Gear. That means a lot, man. Appreciate it. I mean, hey, it all started here at the Smite Draft League. Got a lot of love for this community, and that's where it's always going to be, you know, no matter where that stuff goes. So much love to the community in general, and much love to you, the viewer at home, for watching. But we got two teams here. Very competitive teams. Very good teams, including the 1 seed Wild Inferno. I know have been feeling very confident about their chances going into the near playoffs, and you have good reason to. With, I believe, not a set taken off of them, they've been dominant. And with the emoji ban coming out, I still don't think it's going to be able to quench their fire.
I think with the Wild Inferno, a lot of what I've seen them play is very textbook. They know what they want to do, they execute it perfectly, and they make sure that the other team's always scrambling to try to find something to do. And that's the biggest issue, is if you're scrambling, then you don't have a plan, then everything starts falling apart because you're just trying to react. And when you're just constantly reacting, you're not proactive. So you're not getting those objectives, you're not taking control of the map, and Wild Inferno just does a great job of making anyone who they come across just start scrambling.
Yeah, I certainly agree. You got to make sure you're not put on the back foot against this team. Otherwise, it's all over. But at the same time, speaking of a scramble, sometimes when you're on that winning side, it can be a bit hard to understand what it feels like to be on the back foot. We kind of saw it actually in Season 2 with, I believe it was Divine Flourish, Zitan's team. When they really had never lost a set, they didn't know how to play from behind. So hopefully Wild Inferno is going to start strong, never let the aggression get off the backs of the Sunbreakers. But there's some pretty aggressive bans here that we're not going to be seeing in this game. Kali, Sun Wukong, and Giannis going to be off the side for Wild Inferno. Thor, Nike, and Yamoja are going to be Sunbreakers bans, and their first pick will be the Martikaras.
Coming out of its own little ghost band from the SPL, we finally got Martikaras available to play, and he's always going to be played.
Take pleasure in the crushing of
but
one's enemies.
My thing is, I like Marty. I think he's a solid pick. He's very aggressive, can do a lot that other hunters can't, but I find a lot of teams fall into the trap of picking him for mid, which is fine. But they don't pick a magical soul laner. They don't pick maybe magical ADC or a jungler. So you're lacking that magical damage. And then you're just relying on his ultimate to do that prot shred and the damage. And if he can't get that off, or if he's forced to use it to escape something, then you just kind of lose all your prot shred or most of your prot shred, and you're trying to find other ways to do it. So if you're going to go Martikaras, especially in mid, you have to be aggressive, and you cannot let up, because that's the big issue. But with this Yorm pick coming up that I'm surprised was not banned, I don't feel as nervous anymore. So I feel like this Marty can safely go to that middle lane with a Yorm solo being able to compensate for that magical damage.
I've seen so far, I mean, you have the decision, of course, the flex of putting Marty in the dual lane versus the mid. In fact, a game that was casted just today, we saw Marty take to the dual lane, and there's weaknesses that you can certainly expose there. The long lane, very hard to amble down if you're the receiving end of a gank. So here in the mid, if that is indeed where the Marty decides to be falling, I like it a bit better over there just because you have that safety. And with a Yorm, your neighbor who can easily rotate over with that World Serpent, it's going to give you a bit more safety as well. But Wild Inferno trying to make no one feel safe with their top 2 picks, Ravana and Freya. Matching that pressure in the dual lane is going to be the Ishtar for the Sunbreakers.
I think Freya is also one of these other gods that kind of has a bit of a trap in their own way, because she swings hard. It's like having a freight train on the top of a sledgehammer, and you're just swinging that thing like crazy. But the problem is with the momentum is if you can't get it going right, you're just going to end up hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Freya from behind does not feel good. Her early game struggles, and if you can't flip the switch and turn it around, she just becomes a constant target, a constant source of gold XP for the other team. And you're essentially playing 4 and a 5. But if you can get her online where she's hitting, then it's like playing 6 into 5 because she's doing enough damage for 2 people. She's got her ultimate, which like Marty's is just completely safe. CC immunity up in the sky, a little shorter than Marty's, but if you can get this Freya online, that's a big issue for Sunbreakers, especially for someone as kind of immobile as the Marty. Because if he's forced to go up his ultimate, she can just do the same thing.
Very
And
true. It's almost in that sense, whoever pulls the trigger first on the 4 is going to be in a bit more
loses.
trouble having to land first. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch out for. What's more interesting, though, I like Sunbreakers starting off in game 1. You don't oftentimes see this, but with a
I should
target
have
ban,
created a world that you do not
gotta be
exist
for
in.
POWAAAAAHHHH, because the Hoon bots is something that's very threatening on the captain of Wild Inferno, and with a Freya who's so vulnerable, you don't want such a great counter engage god to keep her safe. So now Wild Inferno's got to think of other means of peeling away for that carry, potentially going to be the Tiamat looked at here for the mid lane.
And to capitalize on that Hoonbats is one of the few gods that can be useful throughout the entire game. As soon as he hits level 5, he has utility. You were saying with the counter engage, right? You could be like 3 levels behind and you're not doing damage, but if you drop that ultimate, Fear No Evil, in the middle of a team fight, you can swing it for the rest of your team. As long as he has his ultimate, he's always useful. But I do like to see the Geb pick coming out. There's a lot of safety coming for the Sunbreakers. They understand they're going to be a bit immobile with this Martikris and this Yorm, but when you have a Yorm up in your face and a Geb shield surrounding him, that's just going to be completely obnoxious. There's nothing you can do. And with this Bruiser meta and the Kamazots, another Geb shield on top of that is just going to cause more issues. But the answer to Wild Inferno is going to have is Odin. And I think this goes really well. There's no one that can really get out of the Odin cage without expending too much. Ishtar has to dash into somebody. You got to expend the hop for the Kamazots. I think the Odin is a great response to all these picks from Sunbreakers.
I'm a big fan of it as well. I think Odin as a last pick can go so hard, especially when you have a lot of those big damaging threats that you have to force a lot off of. And I will say, regressing back to the Geb and what that slots into, I will say Wild Inferno is very predictable CC as well. So we're going to be looking for not just the health that Geb Shield provides, as well, you have to keep in mind that cleanse is going to be all important. But let's see if Sunbreakers can cleanse Wild Inferno of their undefeated record. Game 1 coming right at you in just a moment. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Smite Draft League. Hope you didn't miss us. Week 6 here. Immortal Division, Sunbreakers versus Wild Inferno. I'm Deelo, once again joined here by Gearchief. And Gear, just comp for comp, man, looking at it, how do we feel about who got the better hand at the draft?
I think that I'm really liking Wild Infernos, but I'm very biased with this Odin because I think that Odin can do a lot. Similar to Hunbats with the ultimates, this Odin, if he can catch a nice cage with the Marty and the Yorm, that forces out a lot, right? So their only ways out are those ultimates. And if you can force a Marty's ult out because he doesn't want to be in a position, as soon as he lands, he's just a giant target. There's nothing you can do. So if you can Odin cage the Marty and the Yorm and force them into ultimates that they want to use just to get out, or they just, again, react, because we know Wild Inferno is good at making them react, then you can just capitalize on their panic afterwards. Maybe not so much Yorm, because he can get a lot of distance. If he doesn't want to be somewhere, he's not going to be anywhere. But looks like he's going to have trouble right now.
Yeah, Azteck's going to be on the fritz as well, though. The knockup not going to quite find its mark. BoolCakes going to have to retreat as well. Both solo laners just going to agree to call this one a bit of a draw until chance maybe the minion wave invites either one back in. But keep an eye on that solo lane for sure here. As far as just pressure goes here, for each of these junglers, we see the Ravana is indeed going to be taken to that jungle position, and the Kamazoth, of course, is going to be belonging there as well. Where do you imagine most of that pressure should be afforded on each side?
I think, usually, I'm a big I think the soul lane should kind of be where you start a little bit, because if you can control the blue buff for the enemy soul laner, then you kind of control his whole early phase, and that's just huge. You don't need to stay there too long, but if you can get that blue buff on maybe 1 or 2, then that soul laner's hurting because they have to back, they're wasting, oh no!
Oh, he's got the shield though, man. Look at these near misses. BoolCakes is putting on so much pressure. Just gonna drop some pools down just to make Azteck fear for his life. Not feeling too good, but Azteck's a premier player of Wild Inferno, and it's showing by all these near misses, using that Raven Shout effectively to get back to safety. Continue what you're saying. The pressure afforded to the soul lane first, but then where do we want to see it afterwards?
So as soon as you get the soul lane, right, and you affect his whole farm by taking that blue, making him waste gold on maybe some pots doesn't want to, I think you want to start doing ADC to allow yourself to open up that gold fury. Because if you have control there, and you can put the other ADC down to the point where that gold fury is a bit more free and easier and not as challenging, then you can start setting you up for early objectives.
Yeah, very fair point here. So hopefully going to see that pressure be afforded to this left side lane once a bit. We've seen the solo laners have yet to really amble on over to this dual lane. Seems they're listening to you, at least for the sub 5-minute mark. Solo lanes where everyone's got their eyes on, but the farm's lying on each side. No one's really tried to make any cheeky invades, and without much pressure beyond just those duking outs in the solo lane. Ooh, Azteck does have a level 5 over BoolCakes. Could be a decent opportunity to fight it out a little bit. When it comes to the passive play that we're seeing so far, who do we think overall benefits when the game ticks over to late without many kills falling down?
If it's not many kills, it will start really teetering on how well this Freya can kind of keep in level, keep on item.
True.
And I think that's a big thing. Is if the Freya can keep up with the Ishtar, and the Ishtar doesn't really get a dominance over Freya, then I think Freya will really start winning the game for her team. But
yeah,
that's only picks. I've seen Duck as amazing, but these soul laners just keep going at it. BoolCakes barely squeaking out again. This is just getting really ridiculous. A bit of a nail biter in solo lane right now.
And you don't normally have to say that, but without really any divine intervention from either side to swing things in either one's favor, they're just going to continue to scrap until they're near death. But now we have a rotation coming in from POWAAAAHHHH, rotating over just to get a nice little shield buff for yourself, sticking to safe farm. I have to agree with you, though, that it's a bit of an oversight, if you ask me, to even allow Freya to stay mildly in the game. Azteck, once again, having to flee back with minimal health. It has just been absolute, unabated aggression, but maybe they're just resigning to staying with just the damage on board, just to intimidate them, let them know, hey, I could have killed you there, but I'm not gonna. I'll leave you alive just to take away later. But for now, at nearly 5 minutes into this game, scoreboard still reads 0-0.
Can you do me a favor, Deelo? What is the name of the player who's on Ravana right now?
POWAAAAHHH. POWAAAAHH is on Ravana right now, and KoalaMang's underneath some pressure from the Valkyrie's discretion. But yeah, that's definitely POWAAAAHHH, captain of Wild Inferno.
Are you saying it wrong purposely?
No,
Powa?
it's POWAAAAHHH. You don't see the second O there? POWAAAAHH.
There's no second O.
But there is a second player jumping into this battle here. Koala's underneath a lot of pressure. The taunt's gonna finish the job. Perspective Duck grabs the first blood.
Yeah, and there's the early ganks that I was talking about, where you want to kind of control this dual lane, right? Especially if you want to try to help your Freya get ahead. So you couldn't really get the two early buffs in solo, and they're just smacking each other. Let them kind of do what they're doing, and really start trying to take over this duo lane, which I really like that Wild Inferno is doing for first blood.
Yeah, and like you said, on a player like Penta Duck, this is a scary god to give the first blood to, especially when she should really have no business getting the first blood. But a great rotation here. That global presence isn't something we really got to talk about on the reverse side. We mentioned it here with BoolCakes, of course, on the Yorm. But the Athena as well is going to be a great tool that if this Freya ever gets under pressure, both the Valkyrie's Discretion as well as Defender of Olympus are great stalling tools to allow the Freya a bit of immediate safety. BoolCakes might need that as well, because Azteck once again putting the pressure down, but within range of the knockup. Perspective Duck, though, grabs a second kill with the help of POWAAAAHHH over in the left. Scizzy could be in a bit of trouble, though, on the reverse end. A 3-man rotation. almondbutter going to try to rotate over, get a bit of help to the mid laner. A beast has already been expended, so you can't get out of the Cataclysm. Bat out of hell might send you that exact destination. Zombie going to pick up the kill on a Scizzy.
And the one thing in the interaction, I don't know if you saw, Scizzy was forced to use the beads to negate the slow out of the Camazotz, which then just opened up the giant stun for Geb. That was a beautiful combination, a beautiful baiting of beads, which kind of needed to happen. It was a slow and you want to get away, but there was no hard CC keeping you there. So it was definitely a do or don't situation, kind of half dozen 6 and 1, half dozen the other type thing, where your Scizzy was most likely dead if they didn't beat there. But if they tried to hold it a little longer, you don't know what's going to happen. So it was great on Sunbreakers for putting Scizzy in such an awkward spot where the beads were just... you couldn't really do anything.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Exactly.
But let's talk about game state here. 7 minutes in now with some kills on the board. It's a bit more interesting of a chart. We have a slight, very slight, gold lead here for Wild Inferno. 500 to your name. Not going to be spelling much here, but we can talk about some disparities in levels. You have the carry, just KoalaMang ticking over to level 8 to catch up to Pentaduck, who once again has extended that lead now to 9. On the solo lane side, Yorm's got a slight advantage as well. But as far as rotation ability here, as we begin to look for the next big fight on the horizon, which you have to imagine, is going to be that beacon. With these solo laners and the team fight ability that Odin brings, and the rotation ability that Yorm brings, do you want to see them enter in the fray?
I would like to see Yorm try to use the ultimate to close the gap and take advantage of it, but you have to be very careful, because you don't want to... when you want to get there with the Yorm and use the ultimate, you want to use that ultimate to take advantage of the fact that you're leaving Odin far, far behind. So if you're going to use it, you have to get that beacon quick. Because when Odin comes back to the mid lane and he drops the cage, you are now stuck in that cage. So
that's a very good point. Yeah, because at that point you'll have already expended your main resource to get out of that in the first place. Must be said, you do have a shell on the Geb. Have to imagine that will become the Phantom Shell some point in the near future. But the question is, of course, a matter of when. When do you prioritize upgrading that relic to the max? You haven't quite seen the rotations from the Odin yet, so it might not be something you worry about. In fact, actually, I think the Geb just upgraded to potentially not even grab the Phantom Shell. Interesting decision there.
That is, you're correct. Interesting to say the least. I would expect that to be a misclick or a misbuy. I would definitely like to see one come out of the Yorm too, because Yorm is also stuck in there, and you want to be able to get your Ishtar out, your Marty out, your Camazotz out if they're down with abilities, especially when it comes to Martikaris, who's kind of screwed with his ultimate is down. So,
oh my gosh, nearly screwed there. Powa going to show him the power of his relics, but you're going to manage to escape out of that. And hey, that's a relic down on the Ravana. You don't have to quite worry about that. BoolCakes says it was all calculated, and I have reason to believe him. Fair play to you, my friend. But now, some rotations coming in here from both the support and the jungle. But once again, the game pace is quite slow here. When it comes to just the specialization of each team, what is their team fight MO? What are they looking for to make sure these fights go their way?
So, if we're looking at Sunbreakers, they're looking for a lot of CC to then damage. You're looking at engage with the Geb, cause havoc with some of the knockups of the Yorm, maybe from the stealth knockup or the big knockup, and just setting everything else for the Camazotz to kind of lane in. Again, control with the Ishtar, who will cripple and stun. A lot of control coming out of that one. But all from CC. If we're looking at Wild Inferno, they're more looking to trap and then kill. Looking for the Odin cage, and then when they're scrambling in the Odin cage, trying to find a way out, using whatever they can, taking advantage afterwards. Like, alright, their shells are down now, wait for them to time out, they're timed out, now kill them. Right? They can't use it to save themselves anymore. They use it to escape the Odin cage. Or Marty's ult's down, now engage with him. It's a lot of provocation coming out from Wild Inferno. So I think Inferno wants to bait everything out. Sunbreakers just wants to control the entire fight.
That's a really good assessment of a bait and punish, kind of the name of the game here for Wild Inferno. And like you said, there's two major abilities, I'd say, that you have for that. One certainly is going to be that Odin cage, and the second one is that taunt. And the question when you have such two potent abilities for that exact same purpose is when to use each one. Which one do you think should be leading the engage, and which one do you think should be used when Sunbreakers are trying to withdraw?
So if you're engaging, you really want to try to use the Odin cage first to then group everyone together, but it looks like Sunbreakers are already grouped together.
But they're going to look for the Odin instead, and they're not looking to put him in a cave. They're looking to put him in a hearse. POWAAAAAHHHH might go down first, though, underneath the death from above. BoolCakes gonna grab that kill, steal it away from the Marty. Azteck's got the cage down, but the Primordial Onslaught through the wall, not gonna do quite too much damage there from Scizzy. Tiamat's gotta build up that late game damage. Tier 1 tower on the right side, gonna go down, grabs a kill for yourself as well. Sunbreakers even the board, 2-2.
It could have been a lot worse.
It could have.
Azteck barely got out of there. But I feel like we've been saying that this entire game, right?
Correct.
Azteck has just been squeaking by, but here comes Duck, a little bit stealth. I don't know if KoalaMang sees him.
Knocking some tennis balls at him, but good stun there just to grab a bit more damage. Blaze Retribution can be matched by the Valkyrie's discretion. He just stands there and accepts his fate and is executed by a swift blow with the tennis racket. Perspective Duck grabs the killing spree. Beacon fight now going the way of Sunbreakers so far. They have decent damage on a couple members. almondbutter's fleeing the scene, but now Insertania is underneath quite a bit of pressure. ShadyByrd has to retreat to the rotation from Azteck. BoolCakes on the front lines by himself, devoured there by Scizzy. The solo laner goes down, and with that, Sunbreakers lose their appetite for that fight. Wild Inferno gonna grab themselves that first beacon.
Now, the one thing I just realized coming into this, watching that fight, was that Athena has one of the few characters that has the ability to displace Yorm. So we know his passive is he cannot be knocked up, knocked back, pulled, whatever. But her taunt allows her to drag him wherever she wants, right?
Yeah.
Redirect him. He'll burn right through her passive shields, but that's not the point. Yorm is now able to be moved where you want him. So it's a lot more counterplay into this Yorm. You already have the Odin who can't be knocked up when he's charging his spear, and he drops the cage, forcing Yorm to ult, but now you can control where Yorm goes. So BoolCakes is good for trying to compensate for that magical damage lack of, because you're choosing the Marty mid, but they really, Wild Inferno really counterpicked him, and it wasn't even necessarily just counterpicking him alone, but ShadyByrd looks like he's now stuck in the cage. How did he get out of there?
The Fire Giant unfortunately gonna deny them the last segment of that cage. A bit of play there from the Sunbreakers. They must have paid off the NPCs because they're working out in their favor. That's just unfortunate placement there from Azteck. Had the right idea, had the reinforcements on the way, but the Fire Giant says, no, 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 not today.
That's always unfortunate when you have him dead to rights, hops down, stuck in a cage, but the Fire Giant just like knocks your spears over, like bink.
Yeah,
like
kind of knocked
little
over like some
toothpicks,
dominoes.
little
But
house of cards, yeah.
if they have that game plan, though, it's like you said, this is an important ability, and Aztec's showing that he's not afraid to pull the trigger on it. There's nothing worse than an Odin or just any team fight ultimate god just keeping that in pocket. But right now, KoalaMang might be grabbed into Powa's pocket. Solid up down there to dodge the Blaze Retribution. Once again, Koala understands the situation, understands the assignment. POWAAAAAHHHH picks up what he's putting down, and what he's picking up is a nice kill there onto the carry. It's captain on captain violence here. Sunbreaker's going to try to return that onto the Pyro. ShadyByrd expends the beads and the leap to get out of that. BoolCakes steps up, trying to frontline against 3. Insertania might have to leave the Pyro, trying to assist the fellow frontliner, but BoolCakes is not going to be able to do too much damage in the midst of 3. Might need to expend the ultimate. Indeed, he will. For safety, Wild Inferno called the bluff. Sunbreakers had no business stepping up on that Pyromancer when they're this behind.
KoalaMang is just coming back. I would have loved to see if Duck rotate for this Pyromancer, because I think Wild Inferno definitely had an opportunity to get some type of objective there. You had Koala dead, and Sunbreakers was the one initiating the Pyromancer. Maybe Wild Inferno starts rotating to the Gold Fury, but it is just a basic Gold Fury at this point, so there's not too much behind it. And that's kind of one of the issues going in late, right? The Gold Fury is less and less tempting the more you ignore it. But I would have loved to
listening to
see
you,
that.
though,
But they're going to pull for a Pyromancer right now.
Yeah, and Duck's on the scene. It's actually exactly as you asked, but with the attempted steal not going to succeed, Wild Inferno do grab that Pyromancer, do have the Phantom Shell this time. I think that's courtesy of your friend, the Yorm, and is going to be able to get out for now. Insertania, the for now is the key phrase. Scizzy going to take down the pile of rocks and grab maybe potentially some further farm. No, Zombie's going to be remaining safely underneath this mid-tier 1 tower, but Wild Inferno are happy with that. An objective and a kill to your name. KoalaMang can't stick around there lest he be taken out as well. Gold Fury going to be started here by the members of Wild Inferno, and Sunbreakers want no part of it.
Now, the big thing about that fight is, like I was saying, is the forcing of abilities, relics, and all that just from the Odin cage. It was just the support, right? All that died was Insert. But Odin's almost has his cage back up, and Yorm's got another 110 seconds left before they can use... Oh no, Yorm doesn't... It wasn't Yorm who did the shell. That's a teleport that's down on Yorm. Geb did get the Phantom Shell.
Oh.
So we got another minute before that comes back up. And now anybody can get trapped. ShadyByrd can easily do a hop and get caught, right? Anyone can. So this Geb's now stuck without that Phantom Shell for a little while. And so much was expelled, or just used, to get just Geb out. And that's what Wild Inferno is looking to do, is force them to use things they don't want to use in points where they don't want to use them.
Yeah. And whenever I see that strategy, I always just call it the heavy war cry strategy. We saw it implemented so beautifully in playoffs this season too, where just you can keep using that exact same game plan. He's already got a Breastplate of Valor online. His cooldown's going to be going crazy once he hits full build, and he's going to be able to outpace any shells you try to put up. He's going to be able to throw down cages far quicker. Now, 17 minutes into the game, scoreboard reads 2-6 in Wild Inferno's favor as far as kills go. Gold's the same story. 3k to their name. Might have a bit more here with this beacon. Sunbreakers have all the grass in the world, but that Twister's going to be mowing it. Might be trying to mow the health bar there, ShadyByrd, if he steps too far out of line. But recognizing the situation, going to back off, and another beacon goes uncontested here to Wild Inferno. But they're stepping up. They want a bit more here. Might be looking at a tier 1 tower. Might be looking at Insertania right afterwards. A rotation around the back from Azteck. Traps in the Geb. Has to play a bit of ring around the Rosie, but a Phantom Shell going to spare him for now. Perspective Duck takes him down. And Insertania, once fallen, Wild Inferno got what they want. They're not going to overextend. They retreat back to their side.
Again, we see the Geb getting caught out using the ultimate, the shell, which is now down, and just everything. So now you have a Geb that's without the ultimate, so you know Geb can't initiate, right? You know Geb can't really get out of the ring now for another 100 seconds. This is what Wild Inferno is doing. It's forcing relics and forcing abilities out of Sunbreakers. It's this panic mentality that Wild Inferno just, like, so well implores on their
Forcing
enemies.
a bit out of power, though,
panic
right now. Has to use a Mystic Rush, and the Bat Out of Hell is going to follow him to the ends of the earth. Has to try to juke around before the Defender's Olympus arrives, and not going to be afforded. Unfortunately, before Athena could get on the scene, POWAAAAAHHHH will fall, and that's going to be a nice kill there for Sunbreakers, afford a bit more pressure to their side. But Wild Inferno can stand to take those losses. They just need to be careful for those guerrilla jungle fights.
Now, I want to point your attention to the duo lane, more likely the ADC. That Freya is big. That Freya is huge. Gargantuan.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That Freya is humongous, actually. That is an insane...
Colossus,
what a
yeah.
unit of a lad. 19-16? What do you do at this point against the Freya? Do you hyper-target her? Just accept that she's going to be a force to be reckoned with?
You're in such an awkward spot because the Geb is shown that the Geb can't really... It's just responding. The ultimates are always in response. The shells are always in response. With Freya, you need to be proactive. It needs to be a coordinated attack to take Duck out. Force the ultimate out. Someone needs to. And then dive on her. But that's the big issue right now. And with Insert picking up the Ankh, I think really to deal with the Freya, a blink might have been a bit more necessary. Blink in, initiate, get a big stun out. But Insert seems to getting caught out. Again, reacting with the ultimate. The Cataclysm coming out from Geb just to respond to save Insert's life. Now, you can't initiate with this. And this dance of the Pile Fury looks like it probably could have used it.
Yeah, that's going to be a big ultimate down, and after already grabbing a Pyro, Wild Inferno want to extend this, make a mountain out of a molehill, try to find BoolCakes with a nice dash there. almondbutter not going to quite find the taunt that you need to get the kill, but solid poke on the front line, and without that grand initiation, like you said, a blink might have served you better in this case, but Wild Inferno, also like we said at the desk even, they're not even prepared for the idea of being on the back foot. They have no game plan for that, and I kind of love them for it. Why do you need it? You're the first seed. You've been playing this well. You deserve to have that confidence. Primal Fury just going to add a bit more gold to pocket here. And Sunbreakers, look at them, man. They're back at the tier 2. They just got to try to find what farm they can because all they've had so far is scraps. 4,000 gold lead now for Wild Inferno. It's not insurmountable, but it's definitely not looking good for the Sunbreakers.
The one thing you got to remember, especially for the Sunbreakers right now, is Wild Inferno's ahead, especially when it comes to Freya. But one of our favorite things we like to say here is you only hit level 20 once. And sometimes if you're completely ahead, you just don't know how to handle a team if they come back. If you can't finish quick enough and the other team finally catches up to that level 20 and those full items, then you're not ready for that damage because you've been doing the damage the whole game. You've been untouchable the whole game, right? This Odin's just walking through damage like it's nothing. And it's gotten used to it because they're fighting gods that are levels down. But now everyone's 20, everyone's full built. This Odin isn't being tickled anymore, it's being beaten. The Athena is now taking more hits from Yorm. So you're not expecting that return damage, and that's something you've got to be very aware of if you're ahead. Because out of nowhere, that damage is going to pop up, and you're not going to be ready for it because you've just been winning the entire game.
Pride cometh before the fall is always a lesson that plenty of Smite players need to learn. Hopefully Wild Inferno have been doing their homework in that fact as the third beacon prepares to open on up. And that's just going to mean another advantage here for Wild Inferno, because if that Titans clash takes place soon, it's going to be an easy shred for them on that Titan. They're going to be able to hopefully use that for a potential distraction and potentially even look at that FG here. But beacon opening up in just a moment. Doesn't seem like Sunbreakers really want to venture any further than their own speed buff for this one. They're just going to have to watch as they menacingly stand there and claim the third beacon. Do we agree with that take there? Do Sunbreakers decide to contest?
Stand there menacingly. Get out of there,
Exactly.
Sunbreakers!
They're going crazy.
I think Sunbreaker's biggest plan right now, besides the Freya, should be the Athena. The Athena is 2 levels down on the Geb and looks like a prime target, because you know the Athena wants to engage. So I think you want to kind of blow out the Athena to stop any control that they have out of the taunt, and then maybe go for this Freya. I think that's the best idea they have, because like Freya, their Athena is about their weakest link. So if you can exploit it and take that advantage, then there's no one really protecting the Freya, and the Freya is just kind of freelo.
That's a very good point there, but almondbutter says, go ahead, try to attack me, just dashing into the midst of any. And the lowest level in the entire game, but no fear being shown for it. Credit to the support. Whoop gonna be met with the beads to ensure Zombie's safety, but might not be safe for long should Wild Inferno continue to press this. You do have the Phantom Shell back up, but could still be troublesome if they're not grouped up properly to make sure that relic falls on them all. Pyromancer's back up as well. Wild Inferno, you see Azteck lurking around the back, waiting for one member to step a toe out of line. It might be Shady, but Azteck deciding this is not the time to engage. Gonna instead look for Koala, the backflip to meet it. Shell, shield, ring, meets 3. Gonna be able to find them. The Shell's not gonna actually meet that. Perspective Duck gonna take to the sky, but followed as well by a fellow flight. ShadyByrd takes down Perspective Duck, and that's going to be key here for the rest of the fight. Sunbreaker's got a chance here to make some big damage happen. POWAAAAAHHHH, though, going to stop it in its tracks, take down ShadyByrd. Almondbutter's on the front lines. POWAAAAAHHH's quite low. Scizzy makes Koala even lower, takes down the carry, but Wild Inferno might be getting lit up here. There goes Scizzy in the return from BoolCakes, and Zombie wipes away Almondbutter as well. It's a 2 for 3. Sunbreakers are finally on the upper hand for one of these fights.
While watching that fight, I was like, oh, Wild Inferno has this. Oh, Sunbreakers turned around. Wild Inferno. There was so much happening in that fight that I just thought each team was going to come out on top, but it looks like this extended engagement is going to turn it Wild Inferno's way.
BoolCakes in some trouble here underneath the lunge from Azteck. There's going to be a nice grab of the Pyromancer there for Sunbreakers, but still following up here. They're going to try to find some kills off the back end. Insertania very, very low. The rollout going to grant him some safety, but he's not sure how to path back to base. Zombie certainly has got no means back, but the Fountain Grayscale is going to meet you real quick. Insertania, why'd you go that way, buddy? Go around in the jungle. Wants to take the safe way, use the paved roads, but geez, doesn't quite work out well for you. You're going to take the stairway to heaven instead. Another 2 kills off the back end. Make this fight actually Wild Inferno's favor now, as their Titans saunters over to this tier 2 tower in the left lane.
So, Sunbreakers got that Pyromancer, correct?
I believe so, indeed. The bomb was in their favor, but now Wild Inferno are going to try to grab themselves an FG instead. BoolCakes going to saunter through that grass like the slippery snake he is. but there's 5 members surrounding you. I don't quite like your chances. ShadyByrd has to rotate from far away, and Camazot's not the most mobile god in the game. Almondbutter's gonna need some decent pressure here, but the FG's dropping down to very low. World Serpent might claim it. Wild Inferno do grab the FG. Almondbutter does continue to stay alive, and that's gonna be a solid showing here for the Wild Inferno to continue the pressure into the late game.
Big props for BoolCakes, because as a solo laner, one of the favorite things we love to do is create chaos. And we might not necessarily steal that FG, we might not get any kills, but if we can make the opposing team focus on us for a little bit, just like BoolCakes was doing, then you kind of give your team the chance to come back and try to either steal it or get return kills. So big ups to BoolCakes for trying to at least turn that in his team's way. Unfortunately, his team just couldn't get there and just didn't result in anything, but he was able to get out and not die for it, so he can sit up with his team and set up for this siege going in left. But with this fire giant around, luckily it's not EFG, but that's still something you're going to have to respect. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in this next siege.
Honestly, it just might be more of the same. Now a 7,000 gold lead for the members of Wild Inferno. It's looking quite rough, and once this tower is added to their collection, it's only going to extend further. But Sunbreakers, to their credit, trying to put up a staunch defense. Not staunch enough, though. Insertania takes 1 lick of damage and says, I'm out of here, going to turn tail and run back to the Phoenix. Wild Inferno going to just try to claim every tower. They will topple like dominoes at this rate. It's a question of what are Sunbreakers willing to lose to ensure these towers still stand. Seems that Insertania is willing to lose another chunk of his health bar there to Scizzy's Primordial Onslaught.
Now we got both teams just staring at each other. This is one of those awkward phases where it's not EFG, you're still waiting on your lane, so now you're just sitting staring at each other. You know, it's a whole bunch of mind games. Who's going to go first? It looks like Wild Inferno is trying to bait out something. Doesn't look good for Sunbreakers.
Yeah, you got BoolCakes under pressure there from Azteck. Tier 2 tower will fall, and Wild Inferno, to their credit, know when to disengage. Know when to hold him, know when to fold him, know when to walk away. They're going to opt for that latter option and rotate over to the solo lane. They're not looking for kills at this point. Plenty of structures, plenty of gold to be had in pocket. Sunbreakers are doing their best to stop, but never are quite willing to full commit, and I don't blame them, given how all these past fights have gone. Insertania still with a sizable chunk of health missing. Might be more if Azteck has his way. The front line dives in, looks for BoolCakes, but still looking very healthy to the Snake's credit. Gonna enter the ultimate, could find some decent pressure here onto the members stepping up. Indeed, that member will be POWAAAAHHHH, who tries to up down out of that fight. World Serpent for a little bit of poke, but Azteck gonna look for a bit more than that. A big Phantom Shell will land on all 5, but a big taunt gonna land on 3. The whoop was a bit out of order there, my friend. Learn your PEMDAS. KoalaMang gonna still die nonetheless to POWAAAAAHHHH's hands. And now amongst the front line, taking to the bat out of hell, needs to scoop back, potentially, or his life might fall as well. Marty's gonna trade, go to the air himself. Perspective Duck might be going to the grave. BoolCakes takes down the Freya. A lot of damage off the line now for Wild Inferno. BoolCakes gonna aggress, leading the charge. Shady gonna follow it up, takes down Scizzy. Aztec's in trouble, and Almondbutter's quite low as well. This could be the fight Sunbreaker's looking for. Azteck seems to be the apple of the opposing solo laner's eye. Knocked up, leaps out, but might just be brought down in a moment. ShadyByrd can't quite catch up. Camazotz isn't mobile enough just yet, but finally the claw swipes in the back will claim the life of Azteck. And that's going to be a solid 3 kills for 1. Sunbreakers have a firm hand on that fight.
The big issue for Wild Inferno there was they were doing it great for the first 3 towers, was they didn't need to really commit to an engagement. You're just taking the towers, you're getting lane pressure, you're getting map pressure, you don't need it, but they engaged too far. And Sunbreakers just took advantage of that. And they pushed Wild Inferno back, made Wild Inferno panic. Duck got caught out too close to the Phoenix, got picked, and then the rest of Wild Inferno was just split up. But it looks like Sunbreakers might be overstaying their welcome. Almondbutter getting a big taunt, but now stuck out in a way. This doesn't look good.
Yeah, I don't have too much help other than POWAAAAAHHH, and now what's that help going to be when it's your own jungler? Doesn't have too much damage at the moment, it seems. Insertania, support on support, violence there, and POWAAAAHH's just going to have to retreat on back. Can't do too much there without other tanky members to assist. Sunbreakers lengthen their kill lead here, or kill lead for that fight at the very least. Pyromancer going to be looked at next. Get some objective pressure back your way, and this time, because they're not in a rush, gonna be able to pick up the bomb too, which always feels good. Now, 31 minutes into this game, Scoreboard reads 10 to 12 here is still in favor of Wild Inferno, and they still have a sizable 4,000 gold lead to their name, but Sunbreakers are managing to slowly make that lead a bit more dwindling. If they can keep up some solid fights like that where Wild Inferno has to come to them, has to hard commit, it's a lot more of a hopeful story for the Sunbreakers.
I want to start a petition to make the Fire Giant erupt and do damage similar to Apophis and Slash. Can I get some signatures on that? I think it should, because I just saw it there, and I would have loved to have seen everyone drop to half health and then scurry away because they weren't paying attention to the map state. But now, for the first time, Sunbreakers looks like they're actually in charge. Wild Inferno's got to really think of another way to handle this, because they're getting these abilities out, but there's not much follow-up coming from the second part of each fight. It seems like they can get everything out of Sunbreakers, but they don't know how to re-engage to pull them back into a fight. This Fire Giant dance is probably going to be the game decider, considering that it's now EFG, 32 minutes in, and it's anyone's game at this point, but I don't know who's going to be able to take away this dance. So we're going to make the first move.
Azteck's trying to do that. You see him splitting off to the left, whereas the rest of Wild Inferno are kind of doing their own Samba on the right side. And I like that. That's going to be an unexpected cage, hopefully, that meets at least two and puts him in a compromising position, forces relics, forces ults. But BoolCakes, it seems, going to just do a little sneaky dance there in the grass. And that's going to be such an annoying tool. It always is during these FG engagements. But now Wild Inferno have domination over the pit. I mean, it's not Smash Bros, but I always say it for any game. Center stage is important. You immediately have dominance. You immediately have the authority over the prime objective, which in this case is going to be that EFG now, 33 minutes in. And Sunbreakers kind of let them have it for free. Just the pressure from that pincer movement, the threat of the Odin is a bit too much for them to bear. BoolCakes takes to the ground. Wild Inferno still looking to not full commit, knowing that that was a troublesome thing for them last time. Scizzy has a Swanton Bomb to escape. ShadyByrd pursues in the sky, pursues him to the ends of the earth. Scizzy goes down first. ShadyByrd's on the killing spree. Phantom Shell gonna walk right through that cage. Didn't have quite the impact you were hoping for. And now almondbutter could be in trouble. Dashes back into the FG pit, and BoolCakes enters the ground, enters the world serpent. almondbutter takes to the sky, retreats back. Wild Inferno recognizing this fight might not be for them any longer, but Sunbreaker's gonna oblige to begin this EFG in earnest. You still have POWAAAAHHHH on the front lines. Will the captain lead by example? almondbutter and Perspective Duck hip-hopping their way back in, but you don't have the Mystic Rush. How do you engage in safely? It could all have been a feint. Azteck still manages to grab ShadyByrd, though. Duck grabs Koala. It's going to be entering the sky, a match from Martikaros, but the Aegis is going to grant a bit more safety. Now Azteck's back in it, dealing damage to Zombie. The beads have been expended. BoolCakes is down. Mystic Rush. Azteck claims Zombie as well. How did it all go so wrong? Insertania falls to Duck for the deicide.
Unfortunate for Sunbreakers. They couldn't seem to really clinch up that Fire Giant. Took too much damage, stayed a bit too long, and Wild Inferno was just able to make just so much chaos happen like they're used to, and just really take this game away. And one thing that I realized in that fight that took me way too long is how Yorm can just rip through Odin cages. And I don't know why I forgot that. The auto attacks really do rip through those walls, but it looks like Wild Inferno's gonna rip through this Titan.
Yeah, they say you can keep your basic attack breath. We'll just decide to make this Titan crumble to dust. That's exactly what they'll do. Wild Inferno, 35 minutes in, show why they're the 1 seed. Game 1, POWAAAAHHH on top. Solid work to them, man. I mean, like, they had us a bit confused. They're a bit concerned for a moment. But Wild Inferno, same performance as always. It's the same players. They took game 1. Gear, talk to me about what happened this game.
Well, like I was saying, when the opposing team starts hitting at level 20 and the items start being built, you got to really reevaluate everything you're doing, because everything you were doing originally is not going to work. You're either not doing the damage or you're not as tanky as you once were. So there has to be new plans of re-engagement, new plans of baiting out relics and ultimates, and there's just got to be some sort of change. And we saw that Wild Inferno was able to change on the fly, figure out something new, different ways to bait all these problems out, which they really showed that they could do. Adapting on the fly allowed them to really take that flight, with that last fight. And just the complete courage that Duck had, and
Yeah.
Almond Butter walking in no health, just to confidence in the damage that Freya can just output, just absolutely blowing people up. It was the no fear coupled with the ability to adapt that just won Wild Inferno that game.
It's like we said, they don't know how to play from behind. They still probably thought they were winning, even though they didn't have the numbers advantage. They played like everything was going their way. And hey, credit to them, it worked out perfectly fine. So maybe you just keep approaching every fight with that mentality. All will go well. 1v5, sure, why not? I'll win. Easy pentaduck. So it seems that we had that idea, that vision that you mentioned earlier on the side of the Sunbreakers of CC chains. Where do we think that maybe went wrong? Do we need to see that game plan change, or is it just the execution that fell short?
I think they were really working those CC chains late game, and it was just an unfortunate fight. They weren't able to burn down that fire giant like they wanted to, and I think that was where the big turnaround happened. I think if they're able to output more damage on the fire giant, I think they're able to get it, then it would have swung because they would have been stuck there, and Duck would have been able to just rip them apart. So as far as fighting in CC, I don't think that was the big issue. They showed that they could really control Wild Inferno, especially with how the fights kept flip-flopping all the time. And that Phoenix defense, which was huge on the solo lane. But I think the downfall was just the inability to burn that fire giant. They needed to drop it in full commit, but the team was just split. And they were just stuck somewhere. They overstayed their welcome.
Yeah, and with two hunters, it's really upsetting because, you want the objective shred. It's a really key, pivotal part of why you choose that comp. They unfortunately weren't really ever really able to get that part up off the ground, despite all the ultimates that send you to the sky. They just kind of had the wind taken out of their sails a little bit. Wild Inferno was always the ones initiating those objectives and oftentimes securing them themselves. I think only one pyro went to Sunbreakers. They didn't even grab the bomb. Didn't even grab the bomb gear.
Yeah, that's always unfortunate. I think it was because they were forced out. We saw that Odin just kind of drop in. I think Odin picked up a kill there too. So that's also part of the panic, right? You forget the bomb behind you. You can't use it on the towers or to secure objectives. And I think that's what plays into Wild Inferno, is making you forget that the bomb's even there, making you forget what you got to do, try to act on instinct. And the problem is when you act too much on instinct, you become a bit predictable, and that's really where Wild Inferno just kind of shines.
So then as we move into thinking about maybe game 2 here, strategies, P's and B's, what do we want to see go the same? What do we want to see maybe be a bit different on either side?
I think you gotta respect the Odin, but you can easily not have to ban the Odin if you start picking some characters that have a bit more mobility, something maybe more of leaps, so you don't really need to worry as much as the cage. With the Yor around, it was easy to kind of help out from that cage a little bit, but I think if you're gonna go like the Ishtar needs to connect with someone to hop out, right? The Hunbats has two abilities, so Hunbats is a bit safe, but Marty has to fly up in the air and waste the ultimate. And Geb, as we saw, could easily get caught in there. But I think if you can kind of pick around it, I think you'll be fine. I think the big thing to respect, though, is at Freya. And I think Sunbreakers should realize that they really couldn't lock down Duck.
Sunbreakers actually going to opt to take the Marty off the map, say, if we can't win with it, you guys can't play with it. So that's an interesting idea for them. It does leave the Freya on the map, but potentially leaves them open to grab it themselves, which honestly, I'm always a big fan of. You ban out one option and pick up the other one, force someone on an uncomfortable foot. I am a C2 now. Freya goes to Sunbreakers.
Ooh, but KoalaMang needs to pop off as Freya.
Yeah.
Because Freya's a good character. But the issue with Freya, especially with this Thor coming out, is that she could just be picked on so easily.
Yep.
And it's not as easy as just kind of picking up the Martikris yourself, picking up the Baba Yaga yourself, right? So a strong god. Freya needs build-up and setup. Ooh. And just seeing right now Wild Inferno's draft, that's a lot of control. Not only with CC, but that Thor wall is just huge as well. You can get someone stuck in a spot without even having using the stun.
Tectonic Rift is going to be immensely important. I'm liking the global presence. I always find that so fun. Wild Inferno with 2 global ultimates here. Thor semi-global if you want to be technical about it. Sunbreakers going to add to their magical damage roster here with a Merlin pickup here. Potentially going to even further it with the Ganesha. What are our thoughts on those two and how they slot in against Wild Inferno?
Ganesha is always a good pick. That silence is ridiculous. It can interrupt so much, especially with the Thor spin to win. If Thor's looking to try to get out of a spot with the hammer, can't do it. Athena interrupts the charge. Can just really throw a whole thing around. So I think Ganesh is always a solid pick. Not even talking about Dharmic Pillars that can do so much damage and split up a whole team fight. So Ganesh is always a safe pick coming for support. But it's a little bit of role reversal here, at least God reversal with this Ishtar. And I think right now it's a bit of a there's some beef right now, right? So you just played as Freya into the Ishtar. Now you're kind of like trying to see if you can style on him by beating him as Ishtar into Freya. So there's a little beef going on here in the duo lane.
I'm a huge fan of when this happens, the Freaky Friday God swap to see, okay, you think you're hot? You think you're all that? I'm going to pick Freya, you pick Ishtar. Let's see who ends up being the better. Was it a God diff? Was it a fluke? Or are you just all that? So, gonna have to see, cut the chatter, let the gameplay do the talking for you. These carries hopefully going to be duking it out. But with Wild Inferno having this global presence, Azteck, you are crazy, bro. There were whispers. There were whispers on the wind that Wild Inferno would be starting as the season draws to a close for playoffs. Pull out some crazy picks here. Amaterasu is going to be what they decide to grab.
That's very interesting, but one thing that Amaterasu has is the ability to stick on you.
That may be your
with the dash, the ultimate, the movement speed. So if Amaterasu picks you, if that Freya is down from the ultimate, is stuck on her like glue. Freya is not really going to be able to get anywhere. And the ability for this Thor to just kind of dive the backline on top of her, Sunbreakers is going to have a hard time because they had left that Thor open. And I'm looking at these, the bans. I guess they're thinking that might be Thor solo. We still saw the Hun bots ban for Sunbreakers. So they must really be terrified of Hun bots.
Who was crazy on that God, dude? I don't blame them whatsoever. It's been the vector for a lot of their wins. The counter engage off Wild Inferno with the Poo bots would go insane. But no, it will indeed be Thor being taken there to that jungle. And it's going to be a Thoth being taken. Thoth?
I call
being
it
taken to
Thoth.
the mid.
I call it Thoth.
Got it.
One thing about Thoth, too, you got to be careful of is the insane range. Not so much in the AoE, but you could be sitting underneath your own tower behind it and you still get poked out by Thoth. Not even ultimate. So that's a lot of awareness you're going to need to see in mid lane of Sunbreakers. But I do like the AoE more coming from Sunbreakers.
There's some fun things on each side to talk about, but talk about it no longer. Let's get right into game 2 to see if Wild Inferno can make this set happen. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Smite Draft League. Week 6, Immortal Division, Sunbreakers versus Wild Inferno. After a very nice victory to their name, continuing their dominance, showing why they're the 1 seed, Sunbreakers trying to get their way back in. I'm Deelo, joined here once again by Gearchief. Gearman, when it just comes to what our thoughts fly to first, where does your eye rove, where does your mind wander, what's got your attention on either side?
I think it's this Freya. We saw how big Duck got last game, and if Koala can do what Duck did, I think there's big opportunity, because a good usage of actives can really make Thor irrelevant. So if Thor dives you and you're able to use the beads, and he can't do anything else, he can't stun you, and you're just hitting Thor with damage, and there's a lot of silences coming out from Sunbreakers too to stop Thor from doing anything, then there is the possibility. But Thor also runs the possibility of just completely locking down KoalaMang. So I just think that's the big issue coming into the second game.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Whoa, a lot of damage there from that flip, but being reversed now on a Duck. Almondbutter going to try to rotate in, potentially look here for the dash onto the Mong man, but gonna opt for some safety. I think, honestly, the grand weakness in game 1 that we saw was not abusing the Freya enough in the early game. So I kind of want to see the exact same game plan you mentioned in game 1 for these junglers, especially for POWAAAAAHHH. I want to see a bit of pressure in the solo lane to start, and as we see the bees expended, they're going to find the first blood off the back of it. Maybe going to be able to grab a second kill,
Oh,
not
no.
quite. Instead, that kill will be obliged by ShadyByrd thanks to the rotation. It's going to be a carry for support, but at least that carry of Wild Inferno got the first blood at first.
That's one of the risks you run trying to force a first blood, right? You end up getting out of place, getting stuck. And that's just what happened to Duck, right? No health, all the way down near the tower, and just easy pickings for ShadyByrd. Just essentially a meal on a platter.
Yeah, that's going to be, at least you have a kill on the carry, but on the other hand, the opposing carry, the one you really want to kill, didn't die. So it's going to be a bit frustrating to deal with. I'm interested, not just for the range that this Toth provides, but also it's about the fact that, in a sense, similar to the Freya, a bit of a sitting duck, a bit of a sitting ibis, if we're going to get our classification of birds anatomically correct here. But it's a bit of a dangerous pick sometimes, especially when you have some very dive-oriented picks, such as Akleena, can chase you down with the Lurching Claw. You have the Dharmic Pillars, which could lock you down in place. What's going to be the key for Wild Inferno to keep their mid laner safe?
I just think you abuse the range of Thoth. You make sure there's always a glyph up. Evade and punish goes huge here because not only does it allow him to get away, but you can close the distance. It looks like we're gonna have a fight over this blue buff, but not much is gonna be used. ShadyByrd can't seem to get that blue away from Azteck. I gotta commend him for trying, because if you have a KoalaMang into anybody else, you abuse the ability that he has not to consume mana.
Yeah, but Azteck, to his credit, gonna actually reach level 5 first. When it comes to Amma, I've got to ask just because, God, when have we seen this goddess take to the lane? Not for quite some time. As far as a solo lane matchup, when you're going up against a big old bully like the KoalaMang, are you just doing exactly what we see right now, just not going a yards away from the tower line, or are we gonna try to make some initiations happen here?
I think you got to try to make initiations happen, and what KoalaMang into Amaterasu, two ultimates that allow him to be CC immune, so he can react to her ultimate pretty well. As we know, Ama's kind of really big casting when there's that stun coming on. So I think here BoolCakes definitely has the advantage, but I think Azteck can really kind of exploit some of the aggressiveness of KoalaMang, because you're just sitting there getting hit and you don't realize that you have the Amaterasu passive up on top of you, and you just get picked apart. You just start losing everything that you didn't even know you had.
Speaking of just the big windups, it's a big channel on that dazzling offensive that Amaterasu provides, but it's also a big stun. There's several beads burning opportunities that Wild Inferno has to consider in their arsenal when they're going up against the Sunbreakers, but the question is, how do you use them? Do we blow them all in one cohesive effort to try to just burst Sunbreakers down before they even have a chance to respond? Or do we try to space that out, maybe burn a couple beads and then lead with the big taunt to Final Judgment combination from the Toth?
It's a really tricky question, because you don't always want to just use everything you have in one engagement to start it. You got to be very careful. Use too much and you won't really have enough to kind of get out, like POWAAAAAHHHH going to be forced to do up in the Anvil of Dawn. But we got almondbutter coming in to try to help out, and it's not looking good for Sunbreakers.
Zombie's gonna have to expend the beads there, but caught in the midst of 3, Scizzy finds that kill with ease, and Blue is gonna be able to retreat back to tier 1 tower safely. Shady just has nothing to do but jump around. Dharmic Pillars, pretty solid damage there onto the mid laner, but now being chased out, might have to opt for an unfortunate ritual condition of his own death.
Still gets it!
It's gonna happen. Insertania still gets the kill, though. The rare Ganesh kill, and I'd be happy about that. Jump for joy a little bit, my friend. You deserve it. He thought he had enough time there. I respect Scizzy for the attempt there to take his own life without granting any extra gold, but it's only going to the elephant, so at the very least, not the worst way to go.
I think that's actually Ganesh passive in action, So, well, like, do you understand? Do you know enough about Ganesh passive?
Of course, of course. The sharing is caring passive.
But not only that, the increased radius for assists.
True.
So technically Ganesh got an assist on the tower, but there was nobody to bestow it to but himself. So it just gave it to him. And it's just funny to watch the interaction of that passive actually work to get a kill for Ganesh in that format. It's just
It's
funny.
only meant to give your teammates, if anything, some love. Now get some love yourself from the tier 2 tower. So hey, credit to them for that. It's now 6 minutes into the game. Scoreboard reads just about even in every aspect here, but levels, there's some disparities to talk about here. Solo lane falls to the KoalaMang, as well as the jungle advantage for Sunbreakers as well. And the carries remaining dead even, but if you're even against a Freya gear, I'd argue that you're losing.
I would almost argue that you're winning, because you don't want the Freya to get up on you. So if you're even with the Freya, that means she's not dominating you, meaning you're able to manage her. And then when it comes to late game, she's not getting ahead, so that damage isn't there to then make everything work. Dark Pillar is going to be used to try to trap Powwow, but a nice hammer and teleport will get him away. But I think Freya needs to be ahead, and if she's not ahead, she's behind.
So far, not going to be quite obliged. You'd have an assist to your name versus Perspective Duck's 1 kill. Might look for some action here. Knowing the rotation from ShadyByrd's once again coming, it's a 2v1 handicap match. Perspective Duck going to say, I'll even the odds. Thanks, almondbutter. Joins the battle as well. But the elephant once again going to tilt the odds to Sunbreaker's favor. They're not about fighting fair, and I respect that. You don't want to do that when you're going up against Penta Duck after all. But they're just going to retreat back with some nice farm in pocket. POWAAAAAHHHH once again going to even the odds this time. Shield buff might go their way, but lurking in the walls, ShadyByrd going to try to scream at them a little bit. POWAAAAAHHH doesn't like being yelled at, though. Going to have to retreat back to tower, tail between his legs. Perspective Duck in some trouble from the whoop. Can't dash out without being blocked there by the bird. KoalaMang going to soar to the sky and drop the bombs down on Perspective Duck's head. Find that kill. Almondbutter can't do much. A big stun there off the Anvil of Dawn, but a bigger silence. Not going to find him enough time before POWAAAAAHHH grabs the kill onto Koala, but Almond still falls. It's a 2-for-1 trade, one that Sunbreakers are happy to make. Azteck, best be careful there. BoolCakes is on the prowl for your life as well.
They quacked Duck like an egg.
Nice.
You don't ask how long I was trying to make that one up. Azteck looks like he's dropping a bit low.
They did.
Oh no, here comes Scizzy.
Gonna look for the kill here on a BoolCakes potentially. Already used the evade and punish though. He's just lurking for the the judgment. It's not gonna work, but you need a bit more strikes there.
There it is.
Lip of Pain gonna provide the pain necessary to take down BoolCakes. He was really trying, bro. You saw him. He was hipping and hopping. He was trying to dance from foot to foot, but unfortunately not light-footed enough. Instead, gonna fall to his end. BoolCakes goes down, makes the board 4-4.
Let me see Wild Inferno finally trying to even it. But I liked what they did against Duck. They really kind of committed so much to destroying him. But the problem is, and I've seen this issue with Thockman, Duck is notorious for being able to stay in lane, really farm up, never really fall behind, and when Duck does, kind of come back. So just killing Duck isn't enough. You need to put Duck behind by getting something, getting some of his farms, setting up for a Gold Fury, but with the shield buff up, and I believe Duck has the purple around his belt. It's just, all that happened was Duck died. No, there was no advantage to gain out of that, and you're not really doing anything to Duck when that happens.
That's a really good point. We really haven't seen objectives be looked at all, potentially waiting for that first beacon fight to come up, just flatly, without considering maybe the beacon and what damage that might lie once they grab that around their waist. Before that 12-minute mark, who do we think just has the edge objective clear-wise?
Objective clear-wise, I would think it would be more on Wild Inferno. It's not...
It's tough.
It's tough. It's very tough, because you have a lot of damage coming out, a lot of burn for Sunbreakers, so I think they could do an objective better, but I definitely think Wild Inferno can secure an objective better. POWAAAAAHHH dumping with a huge Anvil of Dawn can really stun out a whole problem, or a whole fight, and then Scizzy coming in with a final judgment could just steal it away. But
True.
I do think if you have ShadyByrd and ShadyByrd, Zombie, and KoalaMang on an objective, it's just gonna burn like newspaper to a fire. with gasoline added on it. There's just a lot of damage for them, but they don't necessarily have a lot of secure to really confirm an objective.
Yeah. I mean, well, at the same time, you do have the Dharmic Pillars, most damaging ability in the game. But even that is not the most reliable. Oftentimes you see it used more for
It's just more
steals
burn.
than anything else. But KoalaMang went to his life stolen away, has to use the beads as well as Valkyrie's discretion. But who's on the scene? It's a ShadyByrd there, going to be screaming at them once again. Some decent damage on a duck, but the Pulse Irradiate combination will not find its mark, so the carry remains healthy for now. Dashes out of the Tear the Veil, but now Koala's under trouble once again. Big rotations here, and Anvil of Dawn takes to the sky, but Pua's pretty low. Not sure if you want to initiate back onto that. Two big ultimates off the board here. Almondbutter has to use Defender of Olympus to get out as well. Scizzy's rotated in, but doesn't quite have the range to find too much damage. Insertania feeling free to step up, and Sunbreakers trying to find any stragglers. Won't be obliged, though. Azteck's positioning is a bit too safe for them to catch on.
The one unfortunate thing that no one really got an advantage out of that, so you couldn't really translate it into a Gold Fury. But the Stygian Beacon coming up, Sunbreakers is trying to get it, trying to secure it, but all of Wild Inferno is here. Dharmic Pillars up, forcing everyone away. Insert staying down, really trying to
Big
confirm it out.
three-man taunt there onto the members of Sunbreakers, but not too much damage to follow it up. Sunbreakers still standing pretty healthily to their credit, and you don't have the dazzling offensive for when they group up, but at least Aztecs on the scene. It's a full 5v5 engagement, and now Sunbreakers, their wounds are starting to show. ShadyByrd might be taking a trip to the grave. Koala's quite low as well, but on the left side, BoolCakes is absolutely bullying the duck. Pua has to flee the scene entirely. KoalaMang's killing it. Aztec's still on the front line, trying to do his best BoolCakes impersonation. Might not be obliged to triple kill there for the KoalaMang. My God, that solo is scary. Azteck, realizing he can't do the same thing as that KoalaMang can do, has to flee the scene and exit stage right. Beacon goes to the Sunbreakers.
I have to say, Insert did an amazing job there. Did not get intimidated out by Wild Inferno. Held his ground and just decided, I'm not moving anywhere. You guys are going to have to kill me. And made Wild Inferno lose so much just trying to displace him from that objective. And then the rest of Sunbreakers comes in and just cleans up. Insert did an amazing job. And that's very risky too, because that could be insanely punishing. Insert could be like, I'm not going to move anywhere, and then he gets blown up. And then nothing comes of it. Powers up in the sky, though. Right
now, to the skies, and now to the grayscale goes Insertania. Aztec finds that kill on the elephant, just as we were giving him his accolades. ShadyByrd might go down as well. Pua finds that kill. Might go down himself, though. Good damage from KoalaMang. Zombie takes credit for that. BoolCakes has expended the dash, but he's quite tanky. Don't know if you even want this fight. A triple root. They might be able to finish the job, but the reach is not going to be granted. Almondbutter doesn't have the damage of a carry, and BoolCakes will escape with a sliver for now.
BoolCakes is just doing big things as a soul laner. That beautiful, sweet, sweet chaos that I love to see. And it's just causing so many problems for Wild Inferno. Every advantage they have, BoolCakes just literally upends it and throws it away. Well, Sunbreakers got caught out on that Pyromance. They did secure it, but now they just didn't. They're just stuck. BoolCakes going for another attempt at a kill, but Aztec's going to be able to get away with a nice little speed buff and dash, but trying to drag the blue away. Looks like they're going to make it out. BoolCakes will not give up, though.
I respect it. He's got Moxie. That guy might just be their best hope. You saw during that Beacon fight. On the main Beacon, they were losing the fight, the Sunbreakers, but after 2 kills, actually 1 kill and a near kill on the Pua, it was all turned to Sunbreakers' favor, so you really are relying on KoalaMang here to kind of carry you to victory on those strong, very broad, well-built shoulders. Hopefully going to continue in that vein here now, 15 minutes in. Scoreboard now in Sunbreakers' favor, 8-6. Gold the same thing, about 1,500 to their name. As you see, an attempt there for a steal, not going to quite go ShadyByrd's way. But again, respect the attempt. They're trying to not let go of this lead, and now Wild Inferno find themselves on the unfamiliar back foot, where we've talked about they're just not quite sure where they are at in that position. But to their credit, Wild Inferno have decent counter-engage tools here, so they don't necessarily have themselves out of this fight just yet. Zombie could find himself out of it, though. Scizzy, on the heavy engage there, finds the final judgment and deems Zombie unworthy of life. A 7th kill there, put on Wild Inferno's back, grants them a bit more momentum back into it.
we just saw Scizzy Zombie get caught bad. 2 ultimates were used though to try to get Zombie down, and that's not a problem, but it doesn't look like it's being translated into anything. Pyro's already down, and we got a big scrap coming into dual lane.
Yeah, almondbutter could be in a bit of trouble here after landing on a prospective Duck's
was
head
up.
top, but Thor might take to the sky to do the exact
That was
same thing to
down.
Insertania, but he can escape the wall. This wall of the Tectonic Rift is only really good against a Ganesh for the stun if you have that dash up. Recognizing that, not going to try to pursue that fight much longer. It's another few ultimates off the board here for Wild Inferno, while Sunbreakers, Blue Diamonds remain in tow just about. Tries to use a Spear of Mortal Hatred there onto Scizzy, but already using the evade to punish that with the ultimate bait. Solid work there from the mid laner to get out of that safely.
Stygian Bees better come up, and I want to see Wild Inferno find a better way to defend this. Insert kind of made them use too much, and then they weren't prepared for the fight afterwards. BoolCakes just taking advantage of that and just getting a triple kill in that last fight over the Stygian Beacon. So Wild Inferno needs to kind of come up with a better plan rather than just blowing up Insert. It worked last game, but that was also because you had an Odin to trap the Geb. You
Very good
don't
point.
really have Odin anymore. You got a wall for the Thor, but it's a bit more awkward to try to get around. So they need a bit more of a plan to deal with this and to confirm this next Stygian Beacon. Beacon's gonna be opening soon, but no one's really circling around. The only person nearby is ShadyByrd. So I'm surprised not seeing the whole teams just kind of collaborate.
The thing about this one is going to be an important one if you ask me, because whoever grabs the beacon, if they do decide to fight over it, and there are kills left, corpses on the battlefield, then you could potentially opt to rotate either this Fury or this Pyromancer. But Sunbreakers, to their credit, they're looking for souls. They want to make sure there's some bodies on the floor once this beacon goes their way, but first steps onto it go to Wild Inferno. Almondbutter is on the scene, but with only him, now Azteck will join, but a big blink, big Spear of Mortal Hatred, not going to find the mark though. Dark Pillar is going to trap too. The front line could be in a bit of trouble here. Anvil of Dawn takes to the skies, caught beneath the rift. Good damage on Insertania, but has to opt to retreat right back out with the double tap. Not how you want to see it used. Azteck, not how you want to see his health bar go. Almondbutter is the first casualty of war. BoolCakes claims that one. Once again, KoalaMang just on a tear, and Wild Inferno just can't do much to stand up against it. The beacon once again goes to the Sunbreakers.
Almondbutter getting caught out, and we're really seeing Almondbutter fall down in levels again, and the team's not really able to compensate as well as before, but looks like both of them are trying to go for Pyromancer here, while Inferno trying to reclaim some face.
It's going to be a bit of troublesome here. Insertania is very low to Scizzy, but now you're no longer safe. Has to use the Aegis. Calmly tries to strut away. Unfortunately, not going to be allowed the safety. ShadyByrd finds the kill and finds Sanctuary himself, able to dash away with the Lurching Claw. That's going to be a nice free kill for their backs. Don't have to worry about that Thoth for another 30 seconds. Sunbreakers making this inch, taking a mile out of it.
Making Ninja taking a mile, but they're getting kills, which is great. But now's the point where you translate it. You
Correct.
have to translate it, because you're just allowing Wild Inferno to come back into this fight.
Yeah.
The only thing they got there was the beacon. They try to get Pyromancer, but they decided now we don't want to commit to that. There's no one on Gold Fury. So, I mean, you're giving Wild Inferno every opportunity to come back into this fight. You're not stripping their... You didn't go to the camp to strip their farm. The 2 big objectives are still on this. I'm not considering Fire Giant, because I think it's a bit too early before we see anyone take Fire Giant yet. No one's
Agreed.
that ahead. So, I think now Sunbreakers is kind of hoisting themselves in their own petard by not taking any of these objectives. And they might be erring on the side of caution so they don't get picked out or stay their welcome, which is fine. But you had the biggest form of secure on their team is now dead. And a whole bunch was just used. You saw that Almondbutter had used the ultimate. You know, Almondbutter's ultimate's down. So you gotta translate it. And they're looking like they're trying to with this Pyromancer right now. And I want to see him do it. I want to see him take it.
They got the beads off Scizzy. Good indication, already solid half health chunk taken out of the Thoth right now. And they're going to begin the Pyromancer in earnest. But like you said, earlier, all the ultimates were down. And now, big blue diamonds sported on 4 out of the 5 members of Wild Inferno. They have the ability to contest this. And it could certainly not go their way, given the secure that the Thoth provides. So they have to be very positioned carefully. Perspective Duck and KoalaMang seem that that's where the fight's going to be. The beads to match the Blade's Retribution, and the Valkyrie's Discretion going to put some more damage. And now rotating in thanks to the teleport, BoolCakes enters the fray. Good damage there from the Phalanx, but you didn't have your carry any longer with you. Recognizing that the call to rotate was coming from the Sunbreakers, there could be enough stall here for almondbutter to be in trouble. No longer has a Defender of Olympus. Flicker used just to get a bit more speed, but didn't have the driving strike equivalent to push him back in. There's the Merlin pull, though, that you need. There's the root as well. Almondbutter, whittled down after a long process, will finally fall to zombie. Wild Inferno going to answer that, though, with a nice pyro call. ShadyByrd's arrived to the scene, though, with the Tear the Veil. Wild Inferno still do manage to grab that pyro, but it was a very good attempt there from Sunbreakers, who are now going to respond with their own objective on this Fury. Aztecs arrived to the scene, doesn't have the secure there with the mirror. Sunbreakers grab that to their name.
Now, I would say it's about... The only reason that the Sunbreakers got an advantage there is because they got the kill as well as the Gold Fury, but that was just base Gold Fury. So, there's not much coming out of it. You don't get the permabuff from Primal, you don't get the Oni waves, and I don't know if the first Gold Fury actually gives you defenses to your towers. And
yeah.
I'm not sure if the Gold Fury still does that, but last I remember it did. So, it's not as much as they could have got out of there with the Pyromancer, given the gold experience and the bomb. But Sunbreakers is looking like they're pretty solid in this lead right now, and they just have to make sure they do everything they can to keep it. I'm not criticizing them saying that they did something wrong. I'm just saying they could have done more right, if that makes sense. I feel like that lead could have been a bit bigger.
I understand that completely, but like we said earlier, it just might be the fact that they've been on the bottom foot for a lot of game one, and even for part of this game as well, so maybe you're just not quite used to having your hand on the driver's wheel, steering wheel, Jesus. Not quite sure what to do in that position, and they're going to have to try to maybe find a bit more confidence, find some more picks to ensure that they can keep that lead, because, like you said, against Wild Inferno, they might just be leaving themselves enough rope to hang themselves. They have to make sure they aren't getting put down. You have some very talented players you're stepping up against. It's the 1 seed for a reason. And if you give them one opening like that, it's going to be curtains. ShadyByrd has to use the beads to escape, and the Dharmic Pillars as well. They don't have an Odin, but that was a really great bait of both ability and relic.
For sure, and the baiting the relics and everything is big, very important, so they don't have it later. A big blink coming in and a dash. Can Azteck find anything out of this?
Gonna be landing as well. ShadyByrd manages to escape into the wall before the stun grabs him, but now the damage is being put on a Perspective Duck thanks to KoalaMang. Enters the Valkyrie's Discretion, but lands right on top of the Amaterasu and POWAAAAAHHHH combination. Doesn't matter though, not when you got damage like this. POWAAAAAHHH goes down, Scizzy takes a fall thanks to BoolCakes. It's another beacon domination here from the Sunbreakers. They don't even want it though. They might just opt for the FG. ShadyByrd gonna be left behind to grab that one for themselves before rotating on over. Wild Inferno have some tools to step up, but it only lies with their front line. Could be troublesome.
I like this call because you leave your jungle to just take that objective. It doesn't really need one other person. But now you're starting to form up around this fire giant. The whole team's here into two. Azteck, I don't know what you can do. You're looking for a steal or just to like maybe bait something out, but I don't think somebody's gonna find it. I think they're starting to waste time by chasing out the Wild Inferno, who's doing a great job of killing time.
BoolCakes, to his credit, doing solid damage. Taunt will not dissuade him. The Warcry going to do a lot to almondbutter, but does have the ultimate, can rejoin the fight very quickly, and the Fire Giant's no longer leashed. Perspective Duck uses the Blade's Retribution, dazzling offensive, catches ShadyByrd, but doesn't have enough follow-up. Angel Dawn could be what you need, though. Finds two, finds Shady. Good damage there onto Koala. Scizzy finds that kill. BoolCakes is down, double for the toss, and Zombie has to flee the scene. Unfortunately, just like in game one, Sunbreakers took the fight a bit too long, and they paid the price. Now, Insertania does have the pillars online. FG dropped down to about half, but they know his presence is there. POWAAAAAHHH going to try to put a bit more damage on the zoning duties, and the pillars actually going to be used there to ward off Azteck from killing Zombie, and that's going to just guarantee this FG goes the way of Wild Inferno. 25 minutes in, they grab Fire Giant, grab 3 kills as well.
I was very happy with Sunbreakers taking that Fire Giant, but they made one critical mistake. Do you think you can figure out what that is? Do you have any idea?
They should have killed the Fire Giant.
they should have killed the fire giant. You have your jungle and your whole team. You know that Freya can't, or not Freya. You know Athena can't really secure. Amaterasu doesn't really have much of a secure. They can try to sneak damage into some of their abilities, but there's nothing dedicated for secure, similar to that thought. Use your solo and your jungle to push them away. Heck, even use your mid laner to help push them away. It's 3 against 2. Force them out while your support and your carry just start doing damage, because KoalaMang's online with that Freya. Trust your Freya. But they went for the kills.
Yeah.
They were just too kill hungry. They had that fire giant, but they bleached it. They dropped it, and they allowed Wild Inferno to come back. And Azteck and almondbutter doing amazing things, killing time, forcing Sunbreakers, or taunting Sunbreakers to try to take them and get the extra kill. Giving the time for their teammates not to only spawn back with all those items with full health, but get back to that fire giant fight that Sunbreakers is weak from. They didn't back from the fight. They did the proper thing and went straight from the fight to fire giant. But they extended the fight way too long.
Yeah, and that unfortunately, like we said in game 1, that's going to be your death blow, especially when you have such great global presence. Wild Inferno can rejoin the fight so much quicker than they could. You had the Defender of Olympus once almondbutter got low, rejoined instantly. POWAAAAHHHH off of that Anvil of Dawn, drops in the backline, finds a stun on 2, puts them on so much pressure, but now the pressure's on the Sunbreakers once again, has to use the pillars and the Valkyrie's discretion, and now Wild Inferno are happy with that. A lot of ultimates baited, and they're just going to be able to retreat with their health in tow. They have the FG wrapped around them. They can keep that up. They can find a really solid fight, and they're just going to look for towers at this point on. Hopefully not going to see the same overextensions we saw in game 1 when they began their sieges as well.
A lot of diamonds shining blue for the Wild Inferno, and KoalaMang and Insert dropping their ultimates, and that's a big issue because now the Freya is vulnerable. You don't have the Dark Pillars to protect her, and she can't go into the sky for safety. And Zombie's ultimate isn't really much of one anyway, just a stance switch. So you really have 2 ultimates in the form of ShadyByrd and BoolCakes, and you can't really defend with it. The KoalaMang definitely can with the knockup, but that's about it. So this next siege is going to be a bit troublesome for Sunbreakers.
I like the safety there. Drop the bombs. We don't need to have any members die on this push yet. They're looking to play the long game, and they're just going to continue to do what they did game 1, which is rotate back, not pay any mind to any kills unless they step too far out of line. Our prime directive is the towers, but maybe I changed my mind. Azteck gonna dive deep in the back, dazzling offensive onto Koala. They know that he has no ultimate to use, has to use the bees, and Aegis instead. Almondbutter now in some trouble as well from the Spear of Mortal Hatred. BoolCakes gonna find some damage there on the support, but with the tower down, relics down on Freya, Wild Inferno once again melt back into the jungle. Their job has been done.
Beautiful job by Aztecs there. Diving in, knowing that Freya doesn't have that ultimate, and just abusing KoalaMang so they couldn't do anything. You don't want to deal with the Freya when you're trying to siege into a tower. So Aztec able to get KoalaMang out of the entire fight and just open it up for the rest of his team is huge. And that's the big key element, especially as a soul laner, is you're trying to push the damage dealers away and make them have to concentrate on you. If you die as a solo laner, but your team gets the objective, then you've done your job. You don't life's not exactly forfeit, but you want to make sure you cause as much disruption for the enemy team so your team can just do what they want without any interruption. And Aztec was just showing they can really do that.
Yeah. That seems to be exactly Aztec's MO at this point. Like you saw, blink in the backline, ult, put as much pressure on this Freya as humanly possible. Now 30 minutes in here, it's showing. Wild Inferno grab a nice Pyromancer, gonna further extend their gold lead to about 5k. Kills lie on Sunbreaker's side, but Wild Inferno say, phooey to your kills. We'll just take all the objectives we want instead and kill your towers. And the structure differential is quite something to look at here. Sunbreakers need to find a fight where they just don't lose it on the back end. This could be a good opportunity. Perspective Duck very low there. Defender of Olympus going to mitigate just enough damage to save their carry, but still, Duck's alive. And Aztec's pushing down this mid lane. Sunbreakers need to answer this in some way. It's going to be ShadyByrd retreating back, and that makes it a nice 4v4 even fight And once Duck rejoins, it's going to be even worse for you. And the Phoenix is dropping very low in the mid. Tier 1 tower on the solo lane side does drop as well. But Azteck, once again, job complete. Cry at me all you want, buddy, but that Phoenix is dead. Almondbutter might be next. Very low. The Divine Judgment finds good damage on an Insert and Shady, but they both will live for now. Seems that it's going to be a little bit of a pacifist skirmish here. No lives fall just yet, except for that of the mid lane Phoenix.
I would hardly call that pacifism when you see Insert drop so low by a final judgment.
True.
And these fights are just, they're going insane, but Sunbreakers lost a lot on that. All they gained was a T1, and they lost a Phoenix. Luckily for them, it's not duo Phoenix, so they dealing with this Fire Giant isn't going to be too bad. They can kind of manage mid a little bit more. They don't have to force someone so far away and then trek back there. You'll have to use your solo's teleport to get there, but you're in an awkward spot now because you have to pay attention to that mid lane, or else you just run the risk of just getting destroyed by Winions. Wild Inferno really showing how well they can just make a whole team panic.
Yeah, that's just like really frustrating to have that in the back of your mind on top of all these other looming threats. A Thor could drop on my head at any moment. Winions pushing in the mid lane. What more do I have to worry about at this point? They have, at least, to their credit, the one thing they can say they bear even on is some pyro bombs in your pocket. Hey, that's nice for the Sunbreakers, but what's the point if you can't even use it on the objectives because you can't make it over to the Wild Inferno base? It's gonna be troublesome as we look for this EFG fight. Wild Inferno are looking for Sunbreakers to come to them. The question is, what will the response be? It's dropping very, very quickly. Already less than half. The Frenzy's been popped. They're just going for the objective. They're trying to find the mistake Sunbreakers did, but it seems Sunbreakers have learned their lesson. Steal it away. Steal the life of Azteck as well. ShadyByrd grabs Scizzy. ShadyByrd falls in compensation to prospective Duck, but the Fray is doing damage nonetheless. Who is going to go down to BoolCakes? And now almondbutter has to flee the scene. It's a 3-for-1. Sunbreakers take away the EFG.
Big turnaround for Sunbreakers. I don't understand how Wild Inferno wasn't able to secure it. They had a final judgment and everything. I think it had to have been Insertania on that Ganesh. That
building the game.
Yeah, most. it's ridiculous, and it does so, like we said, it does so much damage, but it also does a lot of tick damage. So I think Scizzy definitely had the opportunity to really secure that. And this is the break Wild Inferno didn't need Sunbreakers to have, because these towers are just falling and the game's starting to even up a bit. But luckily for Wild Inferno, at least they were able to remove it off one person. But you're still down the rest of your team, and this is not looking good. We'll say they do have the advantage of the fire minions in mid, so they're not losing too much. But that Phoenix is going to be back up sometime soon. You don't have the lane pressure to really challenge it anymore.
Yeah, it's a troublesome situation for sure. Sunbreakers still have the EFG on, especially the members that count, which to me is BoolCakes and KoalaMang. That's where it's going to be very pivotal. And now, the gold lead once again swinging back the way of the Sunbreakers. Now 2,000 ahead thanks to that Oni Fury to their name. Pyromancer still stands up, but you have to imagine they're probably going to scoop around for that at some point. Maybe after sieging down this left side as 5 members strong, they group up to take down that tier 2 tower.
I hate to keep pointing this out, and I'm sorry to keep exposing almondbutter, but hopefully by doing this, we'll get you to farm a little bit more efficiently. 35 minutes in, and you're still the only one who hasn't hit level 20.
Shame.
That's going to be, not necessarily shame, but you got to find a way to start farming a bit more efficiently. You're not level 20. Luckily, you do have heroism up, which is huge, especially into a Ganesh. But you need those extra levels. You need those extra points in your abilities. You got to find a way to farm a little bit more, because Sunbreakers are just going to start exposing that like they could in game 1. And now with Sunbreakers ahead and have EFG on, that's definitely a problem. I would like them to see them siege this, but I think they really got to pay respect to that mid lane. They got to understand it's definitely going to be challenged by those fire minions, and now they're just going to save it, and that's huge. I think that Sunbreakers definitely has the advantage here, but they're not really pushing it. They cleared the towers, which is big, but they needed something more. They needed a Phoenix, and now time's not really on their side as a fire giant buff is going to start wearing off. And they just not using time effectively, I guess, is the best way to put it. It feels like Wild Inferno is able to stall out Sunbreakers every time that Sunbreakers really has, like, wind to their backs. And
Yeah.
if Sunbreakers can't just push forward or walk forward with something, and they keep stalling this out, they're going to give Wild Inferno the opportunity they need to just come back and win this.
Now the game's 36 minutes long, and like you said, Wild Inferno have found ways to get back into these games prior, and they're likely just trying to scheme up as they stand around the mid lane Phoenix another plan to do the same thing over and over again. Defensively, what do we think is Wild Inferno's key as Sunbreakers marches down the mid lane to try to maybe take down this mid lane Phoenix? What is Wild Inferno's defensive plan of action?
I think it's just not necessarily defensive, but I think offense is Wild Inferno's defense. You got to engage with Powa, really get those big stuns out with Anvil of Dawn out of nowhere, follow up with Azteck, who's just causing chaos and panic, and then getting a nice taunt and ramen butter for a big final judgment on someone. I think it's got to be initiative. I don't think Wild Inferno can really defend too well, but I think they can aggress extremely well. And that's always an issue because you now have to be the one to make the first move, and you have to do it right, or you run the risk of not being able to defend what you have to. And that's just, it's always awkward getting caught at your Phoenix and not being able to defend it properly because you don't have the tools. You have the tools more to attack a Phoenix than you do to defend it. So Wild Inferno needs to be a bit more initiative to really respond to what Sunbreakers is dishing out.
Well, on the bright side, you don't have to worry about that quite yet, but this EFG fight could decide if they need to be brushing up on their defensive strategies. Azteck takes the backline immediately. KoalaMang is the target, has to force the Valkyrie's discretion, but good damage alongside the Dharmic Pillars. Might find the life of the solo laner, but has the dash to retreat back safely. Baiting out an ultimate, too, in fact, is going to be Aztec's prime directive, but now BoolCakes going to show an ultimate of his own, but the counter is going to just be a bunch of dashes there. Scizzy managing to evade. Can they punish, though? BoolCakes is stabbing almondbutter right in the back, saying you're going to pay for those extra 2 levels. You should have gotten those, buddy. Good damage here. Honored support will fall to KoalaMang's pulses. That's going to be an unfortunate 4v5 engagement now that Sunbreakers have to force Wild Inferno onto for the next 1 minute.
If anything we know about Wild Inferno is they're very good at stalling time. Sunbreakers looking for these kills rather than going for the objective. And with KoalaMang and Insert down on ultimates, I don't know how this is going to fare for Sunbreakers if they just can't burn this down.
They have Anvil of Dawn, though, and that's going to be POWAAAAHHHH's key tool here to turn this fight onto its head. Take to the sky, and Insertania is looking a bit low, but who will be the target? It's Koala once again. They should have known. Bees and Egg has been expended. A good tectonic rift, but it won't affect Koala. He's unabated, unabashed. He's going to find 2 kills. Scizzy finally claims the life, but not before Pua and Perspective take down to the grayscale. Scizzy's on the fritz. Azteck here to defend the mid laner, but against Shady, you might not be able to. Flickering Visions does solid damage. BoolCakes enters the Phoenix line, drops 2 bombs on the solo side. The right side bird will fall.
That's all well and good. The Phoenix is down, but you don't have your objective shred. And Power and Perspective are going to be up by the time KoalaMang's up. So Sunbreakers is at a great position, and they played that extremely well. And I don't know what just be careful. Aztec being a bit too aggressive here, and I don't think it's the really great call.
You have Athena entering the fray, though. Could be your answer. ShadyByrd's quite low, and the Glyph of Pain can ensure some long-range damage there from Scizzy. Forces Sunbreakers off the fight. But, granted, at the cost of some more big rig ultimates from Wild Inferno. But, at the very least with Sunbreakers backing, it gives Wild Inferno an opening to maybe grab a Pyro, even potentially grab a sneaky EFG 40 minutes in. I don't know if that's quite the play. Over-focusing on the objective didn't quite work well for them the first time. Not so sure if they want to hazard a second try at it.
Now, Wild Inferno made a pretty big, I wouldn't say blunder, but huge risk was taken in that last engagement. Because we saw, I believe, a final judgment was used because we see Thoth is just barely about to get that online. The rest of Sunbreakers have their full ultimates up. Almond Butter can't be in. Pow is stuck in the air and can't get into the sky.
He's immediately dropped. That was a fantastic whoop there by Koala to take down the captain. Without their leader, Wild Inferno might not have any hope. They retreat back, tails between their legs. Zombie, the only one, just to put a bit more damage there onto Azteck. They need to, like you said, do something with that lead. That's a big global presence down. They can no longer drop on you without some means of expectation. BoolCakes needs to zone properly, and now the EFG will begin. But how will they dance to this tune? Wild Inferno going to take a bit of poke there, courtesy of Zombie. BoolCakes enters the fray. A taunt going to just get a bit of pressure off of Scizzy's back. ShadyByrd's lurking, though. EFG being leashed for maybe a bit too long at this point. We know Wild Inferno loves a good stall tactic. BoolCakes taking a bit of poke here from Azteck. But now EFG only at half health after all this time. They need some more burn or they're going to find themselves in trouble here. And KoalaMang going to take the first step in. One kill there onto the support. Indeed, the other support will fall as well. Insertania goes down to Scizzy. Has to use the Aegis on the Thaw to ensure safety. KoalaMang takes a trip down to the fountain. Scizzy's out. Zombie's done. Perspective Duck gonna take out the big damage dealers of Sunbreakers. Opens this fight wide open. Azteck finds the double on a Shady. Sole survivors, BoolCakes. Once again, they took too long. And now all the bodies are on the floor. Wild Inferno can now, unopposed, just do what they so please with only BoolCakes to stand against them.
It's hard to really pick out what truly went wrong there, because I have to commend Sunbreakers for doing exactly what I was talking about, was trust your ADC, especially with Afreda who's swinging hard, to just kind of burn down the the fire giant. I just think the issue, I guess, to pick it out was the fact that the whole team of Wild Inferno was there, so you couldn't really push out. Like the last instance, there was only 2 there, so they're able to. This time, there was the whole team, and it was just an issue. But let's see if BoolCakes can steal this fire giant away, giving Duck a run for his money.
Oh, but here's the Athena to just teleport onto the scene and forces BoolCakes out immediately. A 1v2, doable. 3v1, highly doubtful. EFG goes to Wild Inferno. BoolCakes, do we decide to risk it all on that play, or do you agree with the tactical retreat?
It's hard, because the thing is, as a solo editor, I would have done it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing. I'm all for the glory, and when you try to do that type of play style, there's a lot of shame that comes with it. So I would have maybe backed out and then tried to re-engage to steal it. But that's me, and like I said, I'm not saying it's the right call at all, because now I might have died there, and now I'm not there to help the rest of my team take a Primal Fury or something. So BoolCakes is alive, and he can help his team, and he didn't use anything to get that, so his ultimate's not down. His relics are now kind of up cooldown. At least one of them is, so I can't say it's the wrong choice. I'm just saying that it was probably the smarter choice, I'll say that. But just think of like how amazing it would have felt to steal that away. But even if he stole it, he probably would have died anyway.
Yeah, it would have been certainly a bit of a suicide mission at that point, but still going to have some value here in these future fights. Now 44 minutes into the game. I mean, gold lead, who cares? 100,000 to 100,000 is all you need to know. Everyone's full build, just looking for power pots at this point. Wards in everyone's pockets there. Love to see that. Appreciate the vision. But Wild Inferno now going to march down this left-hand side. Mid Phoenix is a bit low, so if they decide to rotate over to that, could be easy pickings. But wow, great damage there from Zombie. Really puts the poke onto POWAAAAHHHH, almondbutter, and Perspective, who need to now watch out for the threat from the Merlin stage right.
Not only is the Merlin, they're stuck with a decision, do we back up to re-heal and re-engage? But when you do that, you're risking more time being ticked away on the EFG. So it's something you got to sit there and weigh now. That was a big play, a big ability coming out for some Zombie to make Wild Inferno respect now this engage, this Phoenix Siege. But Wild Inferno's doing a great job of splitting Sunbreakers up and not really letting them set up to really get a good defense. KoalaMang's now in mid with this Phoenix so low. Azteck's going to go in. This EFG's going to make quick work of it.
Yeah, Mid Phoenix is a foregone conclusion now, but the health bars of Azteck and POWAAAAHHH are a different story. Could be in some trouble here, have to retreat, and you have to imagine that that means the left side engagement won't go Wild Inferno's way either. Dharmic Pillars tries to catch them out. Spirit of Mortal Hatred knocks Scizzy up, but a big shield to match it. Could still be in trouble, rooted down alongside Perspective. The damage core of Wild Inferno might just drop here. Almondbutter needs to pull out some big rig peel, and there's gonna be, set them up on a blunder for the Divine Judgment, grabs two before Scizzy falls, and Duck is gonna open this wide open. ShadyByrd goes down, Zombie's in trouble. It's a double kill there for the Ishtar. It's a triple kill there for the Ishtar. If only there were two more to just put an action replay on what we saw Season 2. But the deicide will be just enough for Perspective Duck to give the advantage for Wild Inferno and give them the set on a silver platter.
That final judgment was huge. I can't... It was just amazing. He turns around, fires it off, gets a kill, and just makes someone else insanely weak, follows it up, and then gets the double kill for a big turnaround. Wild Inferno really takes this.
Indeed they do. It's going to be a 2-0 set. You can't deny them this. It's the 1 seed on top, taking the set in 2. Wild Inferno get the Week 6 victory. I can't make my Wild Inferno washed jokes. I'm so disappointed. I know they are too, because, I mean, they had some unconventional picks. They had a few slip-ups as well, but in the end, they brought it back home. Gear, talk to me about what happened this game. Where did things start to turn away from the Sunbreakers?
It's hard to truly say. I think Sunbreakers really had a hold in this whole game, and there was no place that they really lost it. I just think it was just comes down to bad fights. And not necessarily bad fights that the Sunbreakers did anything wrong. It's just the fight turned around on them. And you can't really blame those on one thing, because sometimes it's a split decision, it's something in the heat of the moment, or it's something information you just didn't quite know. You didn't know how close the rest of Wild Inferno was. You didn't know what they really had up or something. You thought you had it. You're seeing red. There's so many micro small things to pinpoint out and say, well, that added to this, to that, to that. But I don't really think there was anything completely wrong that the Sunbreakers did. I would have liked them to push a little bit more of a lead in the beginning. That final Fire Giant fight, they needed to kind of not really commit so much to the Fire Giant with the whole team of Wild Inferno there. But, I mean, I'm nitpicking really at this point. Sunbreakers did an amazing job this game, and it just felt like that last fight could have been anybody's. And a big Scizzy ultimate just kind of turned it all around. Yeah,
my concluding points that I've got here, I've got a list real quick. BoolCakes is crazy. Fantastic bullying. Honestly, should be reported to the principal's office and sent to detention for what he was doing to that back line. We need Almondbutter to farm more. Get healthy, buddy. Come on. It's your right to farm as well, even as a support. Get healthy, get big, get swole. POWAAAAHHH on top, of course, always. And crazy ultimate there from Scizzy. That's what we got, though. I mean, what else is there to really say? The 1 seed remains on top for a reason. It doesn't seem like they can do any wrong. Unconventional picks be damned.
And I would like to say big ups on KoalaMang for really showing that the Freya is as lethal in Koala's hands as it was in Duck's hands. There's a bit of... It's kind of scary going in there picking the Freya up after you just saw Duck really farm with it, but Koala showed that they were not scared. They were, I'm going to take this up and I'm going to show you up.
Big facts there, and it takes a lot of gumption to step up to that Freaky Friday swap. Didn't quite pay off, but nonetheless, the captain's showing that he's not afraid, and I like to see that attitude as we get nearing to the playoff season. And that's going to be all we have for you here today. Thank you very much for watching this Week 6 Immortal set. Wild Inferno stepping up to Sunbreakers and bringing it down as the 1 seed. I've been Deelo. He's been Gearchief. We had iNooblet up on the cams and on the production scene as per usual. Thanks for that, my friend. Always appreciate it. And with that, thank you for watching. Keep an eye out on the YouTube for more content, always dropping down from the heavens. And make sure to subscribe if you don't mind. We greatly appreciate it. With that, thank you again for your viewership. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all next time.
Peace!